Good morning and welcome to Let's Have the Conversation. Today I have with me Pam Iverson, the amazing host of Girls Growing Group on Facebook and relationship coach. And we're going to be discussing relationships, their many dynamics, various structures, and especially how they connect with Black women and femmes because her motto is Black women and femmes first and always. Good morning, Pam.
Good morning.
I'm so happy to have you. Like, I love talking to you. I love being in community with you, but having this space, like, so others can hear your theologies and ideologies on life, love, and relationships is super important to me. So, thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, we talk a lot, you and I, and it's interesting to share our conversation with other people.
I know it feels weird now that I'm recording it. I'm like, wait,
Right.
because it comes so naturally. But now that it's recording, I'm like, oh,
It's
what
like
should I say?
right, right.
But anyway, that's what it is. It's like, extemporaneous conversation and let's kind of see how we go. So basically, it's going to be dating, relationships, and partnerships. So I found it very interesting that you said dating could be easier and more enjoyable if folks learn to boundary their giving and release their attachments. Could you expound upon that?
Yeah, I am a Black woman, and I speak to and for Black women primarily. If
So
other
needed.
people hear me, cool. If they don't, cool. Um, and as a Black woman who dates men, um, my experience has been that women, by and large, in heterosexual relationships, are looked to be the givers, the investors. We're looked to do emotional labor, of you know all kinds, and not only that, but we're expected to meet outrageous standards of beauty at all times.
Agreed.
We're expected to perform to certain societal ideals in terms of what it means to be a lady or a woman. There's so many expectations of us that a lot of us approach dating with the mindset, based on our awareness of those expectations. We approach dating with the mindset that we have to show up a certain way to be valued, um,
That's heavy.
rather than showing up as who we are and demanding the respect that is our God-given right, and choosing to disengage people who don't value us for who we are. And when I say boundary you're giving, you know show up as yourself, and give just what is authentic to you to give in relationships. Give what you want to give authentically. Don't give from a place of um thinking that it's going to get you a certain place in dating, or a certain place with an individual person.
Right.
And don't give things that you don't want to give. Don't, I mean, and that's in terms of anything. Don't, guys that ask up front, can you cook? Don't be somewhere, cooking for somebody, thinking it's gonna make them see
Attract them.
you a certain way and value you a certain way, if that's not authentically what you want to do and what you want to give. Because when you give from a place of authenticity, you can never lose, and you don't end up feeling like you've been used potentially.
Right.
So that's first. And in terms of releasing attachments, being having an open mind to creating our own relationship structures that work for us. Being willing to be free thinkers, and not oppressed or, controlled by what others may think of us, in terms of, our partners or our communities.
I agree with that. I think that there's a lot of societal pressure that just comes from systemic oppression in regard to how Black women show up in the world, like you said, right? Like, so there's all of this, you need to look a certain way, speak a certain way.
Yep.
And like, so that lack of authenticity that shows up in just needing to just have my basic needs met, right? Like, so I can't even be authentically me. I can't talk a certain way, look a certain way. So Black women are spending much of their lives
And
disingenuous
energy
to self.
and energy, like we're spending all our energy trying to be attractive,
Yeah.
to whatever our dating pool is.
Right.
And, in ways that don't align with what's authentic for us.
Right.
So we divert energy that we could use to, heal, grow, and self-actualize toward, trying to, fit into boxes, so we can be picked.
Right. I mean, I think it does come from societal pressures because, like I said, if you have to constantly be conforming to this ideal of, cis, hetero, idealistic white woman almost, and you have to, like I said, speak a certain way, dress a certain way, look a certain way. And it's deeper than just feminism, right? Like all women have to do this, but then Black women have to double down on this, right?
Mhm.
Because if you're too loud, you're aggressive. If your hair's too big, you're scary. And it's like,
Right.
so all of this conformity. And then by the time you come to having a genuine relationship, you're so disconnected from who you are authentically.
You don't even know who the fuck you are.
You can't
Like,
even show
you
up.
can't bring that. Yeah, you can't bring that to a relationship.
Right. So, like, how do you think that as Black women and femmes, we can deconstruct that, at least within our relationships, before we attack societal views? Like, obviously, that's a greater issue that is impacting our microcosms on relationships. But within the relationship structures and parameters and partnerships, what does that self work look like for you?
It's hard, right? Because that requires our acceptance of the truth that, if we are who we are, and if we commit to that above anything, that may mean we won't have partnership.
Wow.
That's the truth that, people don't want to accept. Not everyone gets married. Okay.
Yeah.
And Black women have the lowest marriage rates of any women, so let's deal in reality here and understand that, the relationship I'm guaranteed of is a relationship with me.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, that's the guarantee. And so by investing in that relationship, I can never lose. As a byproduct, to my own focus and investment on, my healing and my personal growth, and spiritual evolution, I may attract a mate, I
Mhm.
may. And because I've been invested in this work, you know, that's an easier transition. That's a more natural aligned transition to connect with someone and just continue that work.
Right.
Um, and so, you can't lose because all relationship work is self-work anyway.
Absolutely.
So it's just accepting that my relationship with me and my being true to who I am, and who I'm becoming is the priority. And to not elevate this ideal of partnership and marriage above that.
So I'm hearing you, and I love that because I think it's very true is that when we have an authentic relationship with self, it makes it that much easier. You know, I've been partnered with my partner on and off with our just ups and downs for almost 12 years, but it became more solid when we both showed up authentically. Like when we both, like, you know, I was much more free than my partner was, but I also grew up with a mixed background, right? Like I'm Irish and black. The majority of my close women friends are white women. The freedom that they have in the world is just
Different.
unmatched.
Mhm.
And like I didn't even realize how free I was in my thinking. Like, yeah, of course I could do that. Like, why wouldn't I? Until being in more close relationships, like I said, like within your group and girls growing with Black women and recognizing how much that level of authenticity is not allowed in society. And it showed in my own partner. My husband is a Black man, and like just certain things, like he's like, what are you doing? That's just like not correct. And I'm like, what do you mean that's not? I don't even understand where you're coming from. Like, cause me, I'm totally open for non monogamy, right? And like, this was like the wildest things between him and his friends. They're like, what? Your wife said you could do what? Like, no, no, I don't believe you. He's like, babe, come here. Tell him. Like, you know, I am like his little like, what? That is so weird. So it's been interesting navigating those spaces. And it does help because when he realized I did not require this idea of like, I don't want to be everything you need forever, dude, the weight of that alone makes me want to bolt out of a door, you know? It allowed him to show up in a deeper, more authentic way.
Mhm.
And he doesn't even activate the non monogamy part of it, but the pressure has been relieved in that, like, oh my God, this is it forever. And so it does allow him to show up, and it does create a deeper, better partnership because, like you said, you know, not everyone is a partner because people don't have the capacity to commit where, at the level that you are. Could you expound more on that? Like, what does partnership look like in a healthy relationship, specifically with Black women and femmes, since that's the focus?
Right. I think that we overuse the word partner. We overuse the word partnership. From my perspective, partnership is a specific thing, and it involves mutual commitment to work. If you don't have someone in your life who's helping you do the work of your life, you don't have a partner. You know, your partner is not simply your friend, you know, not simply your romantic interest. You know, your partner is helping you do some work in your life in an intentional and committed way.
Right. Not just
And that's
blindly
a
going through
mutual.
it. Yeah.
No, not just blindly going through it, but you know, an intentional commitment and an intentional showing up to that commitment. And you know, not all partnerships need to be romantic. You know, I have a platonic partner, and we are committed to supporting each other in various spiritual work. You know,
Right.
that's an intentional commitment that we made to each other, and we intentionally show up to that work for each other.
I like that. I like that a lot. And I think that, yeah, we need to really pay attention because, like, even my friendships are partnerships. I'm very, like, business oriented and,
Mhm.
like, business minded, if that makes
Me
sense. Like,
too. Me
so
too.
all of my relationships, like, yes, like, they have an ROI. There needs to be a return on investment.
Hmm.
Even those with my children, that's a whole other topic I want to have a conversation about. Um, because we do show up, and like you said, like we're socialized, all women femmes are socialized into being these givers. We just keep pouring in, and it's wild that nobody expects to get anything back, and more so
It's so
black
wild.
women.
It's
Black
so wild.
women, like since the
And
dawn of America.
especially black women dating black men. You
Wow.
know, the bar is so low in terms of what we expect and what we require in general.
Right.
And it is wild to me what we give for what we relative to what we accept, and what we get. I've often have told people that I've had whole relationships where when it ended, like I could not look around and see anything that was given to me. Like literally there was nothing.
No gain.
There was nothing except what was gone from me,
Wow.
what I'd given. And, eventually, a light bulb turned on and said, yeah, we're not going to do this. We're not going to invest in things that don't benefit us,
No.
that
And
don't
you
benefit
shouldn't.
us in tangible and substantive ways.
Right.
Not we had good times, not if you leave and I don't have anything but memories, that that ain't it for me.
Right.
Yeah. And so I don't engage in relationships that don't benefit me.
I hear you. So now that I want to discuss that too, is because I think that, so specifically speaking about Black women and Black men dating, like we are all aware that Black women are higher paid, higher educated. So when we start applying certain things, like just because you said benefit, and I know that you're talking about deeper than just financial.
Definitely.
So I don't want to dismiss that. I know what you mean. Like a beneficial relationship does
Right.
not only mean a financial one, but oftentimes, like when you're out here on these internet streets, you start seeing that. But like the truth of the matter is systemic issues have created such a gap, right?
Yes.
Between Black women and Black men and their earning potentials and their
Right.
education. And we could totally
Right.
have a whole segment in regard to that.
Right.
So for me, like when I'm seeing it, I'm like, okay, I get that, but can we go deeper into what benefits look like? Because
Well,
as higher paid and higher educated women, we're going to make more than our Black counterparts. And white feminism tells us, like, you should date up because white feminism is attached to capitalism. And like, that's easy for them to do because white men are at the top of the whole thing. So usually if they're going to date up, that's all they have to do. But specifically speaking to us and releasing some of those societal constructs, what do you see when there's not a financial benefit? What does beneficial partnership between Black men and Black women look like? Because I see a lot of frustration in Black men, like, but like we can't do certain things, like, or these 50-50 conversations, which I think is ridiculous. But when we're focusing only financial benefit, that's what we get. So specifically within the Black community and Black women and men dating, what does that look like? What could be beneficial partnership when we take the money out of it?
well, this is a very layered conversation, and there is a lot of nuance here because what you said, is absolutely right. There are societal and systemic barriers to success on various levels
Mm-hmm.
for Black people, and and for Black men to an even greater extent.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a reality, and that's not a reality that we can or should ignore.
Right.
However, and I don't accept that Black women, you know, while we can acknowledge that reality, while we can empathize with our brothers, while we can, um, be realistic about the obstacles, we also don't have to accept it as our responsibility to to carry men financially.
I
If
absolutely
that's because that's their reality, and we don't have to accept the responsibility to partner with men who we don't feel, whatever our criteria for you know being benefited or being invested in, or a relationship making sense to us in tangible and substantive ways, whatever our individual criteria is for that, we have the right to um, require that or not engage people. So I think, it is both. Yes, these obstacles are real for Black men. And also, that doesn't have to be Black women's problem if they don't accept that responsibility. So that's the first part of what I want to say. Secondly, there are, like I said before, we're not restricted to um old paradigms. Like, we're not restricted to um specific dynamics and roles in terms of gender or anything.
right.
So whatever, two or more people decide, works for them, whatever there are the agreements that they make together, provided, the parties involved are living up to the responsibilities that they've committed to, then, that's cool. You may have and also, not all Black women, make more than all Black men. There are plenty
Very
relationships.
true.
There are plenty relationships where between Black men and women where Black men are the financial providers. So, I don't like to add to this, I don't like to add to this thinking that um the possibility for having, for being provided for only reasonably exists for white women. That's not true. It
No,
exists for
that's not.
Black women.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
That
it
wasn't.
exists.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that wasn't my intention. If that's how that
it
came
exists for Black women as well.
off.
And
Right.
I think that, you know, a lot of times the expectation is put on Black women to, accept less than what we may want or think we deserve in various respects, because for reasons, because um, the population of available Black men, it
Right.
is less than the population of available Black women. And, and there are all these systemic barriers to, Black men's success. At the same time, there are plenty of, um, you know, financially successful Black men out there. And if that's something that is um, a need, then you have the right to require that for yourself. But you can, you can have situations where the Black woman, who may have a higher income, it may make sense for the for her partner to stay home with the kids and be, and that's still an equal investment, just as it would be
Right.
if it was reversed. But I think, when we're able to let go of how we think things have to look or should look, then, we're open to more, more possibilities in that regard. But
Right.
yeah, by all means, if you're a Black woman and you're, you want to be provided for financially, then, hold that as a standard for yourself. It's out there.
I agree. And I like that. Like, that was my whole idea, is that, like, back to releasing the constructs. And like you said, like, the way we date, right? Like, we can't ascribe our dating style to the rest of the world, right? Just
No.
because of a lot of other systemic issues. While I firmly hold and believe that Black women should definitely, if that's a standard that you need to be financially cared for, absolutely hold that standard. Do not you don't need to lessen yourself in order to.
Right.
But I was just speaking more to the sense of like what you said, like opening
Be
ourselves
open.
up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you may be a,
And
you may be a
releasing
black,
constructs.
yeah, you may be a high earning black woman, um, and you are dating a man who makes significantly less than you, but the relationship is good, and he may be, not able to pay your bills, but he can fix your car, and he can make sure stuff is good around your house, and he can, he that's still a financial benefit. It's
And it's
not,
still an investment, right?
it's
Like
still
that's
an
the
investment.
greater
It's not
that's the greater
happy.
partnership.
Right. And that is partnership, because I'm bringing what I have to bring, and you're bringing what you have to bring, and both our lives are enhanced.
Right.
Partnership should always enhance both people's lives.
I agree. And that goes right back to what we were saying, like with the business mind, right? Because, like, even if
Right.
you start a business, not every potential partner has financial, right? So I may
No,
have financial capital, but this person has a skill that I don't have that would make this
exactly.
business run better. And if we applied some of those principles to our relationships, like, yes, you know what? In my home, I'm the higher earner, but he has a greater capacity for like parenting and caretaking than I
Right.
do. That's just,
Right.
I'm very much a certain type of person. Like, this is what I'm doing, this is that, another thing. And he goes more with the flow. But that
And
is
that's
what
a
creates
partner that you need. That's a
right.
partner that you need, because at a point you have enough money, and unless it's exponentially more won't really enhance your life as much
Mhm.
as other things could.
There's actually been a study out that $70,000 a year is the sweet spot.
Hmm.
Like, and like, I mean, obviously more is better, this, that, and the other thing, I say obviously, but not necessarily, but like $70,000 a year is the sweet spot. So it's like, if you can kind of, obviously as you add more kids or, depending on how you budget your lifestyle out or what have you, there
Right.
are other things that can enhance your partnership. Like you said, it's like, okay, so what if we're making all of this money, but we're not connecting as partners? You're not
Right.
pouring into my spirit, we're
Right.
not investing in each other as individuals
Right.
and dreams and conversing, and that goes right back to like how the way we date, if we're just dating for financial gain and not partnership,
Right.
there's a
Right.
problem. Like,
Partnership is a specific thing, and partnership, when it's healthy, energizes both people. That's the
yeah,
benefit of partnership. It energizes you to do the individual work of your life. It energizes you in your other interactions. I have energy to, you know, give to the Black women in my life. I have energy because of the way my partner pours into me, takes
so
care of
beautiful.
me, and renews my spirit.
I do love the stories that you share about your partner because I absolutely love how the two of you love each other and so authentically, because you're like so funny on social media. Like, who, me? No, I'm single. Like, and you're like super duper not. And he's super duper unbothered and doesn't have this like ownership need, right?
That's
Like,
the authenticity part of it.
that's what
Like,
I'm saying.
yes, I'm just me. Like, I'm no different. In my personhood, um than before we met, and I don't move differently,
Right.
and neither does he. And for
Right.
me, that's the mark of a good partnership for me. That's a partnership I want to be in, where I can still be me.
Right. And like, like some people may not know, but like I do a questionnaire prior to this just to kind of keep me on track because I love chatting and conversing so it can go off. But this leads me into this part where you said like many people don't understand that the freedom to create any type of relationship they want exists, and that
Yes,
clinging to social norms and outdated paradigms sets us up for failure in
it
relationships. And
does. If you want to, if you're a femme and you want to date a man that is the stay-at-home mom in your relationship, and that works for y'all, do that. If you are, um, you know, if you want to be non-monogamous, do that. You know, if you want to be together but live apart and that works for you, do that. Be open to whatever may work. Don't be
Right. That's a
attached
beautiful
to
freedom.
what you've seen that works for other people. Don't be attached to what your mama said you should be doing, or, you know, what your church said you should be doing. Do what works for the people involved in the relationship. That's all that matters.
So how does this show up for you? Because again, you're a relationship coach. So I would totally love, I would have loved to have met you years ago and like been coached through. I feel like my marriage would have been much more successful in the beginning times had I had a coach like you, because we
But so
did
would
try to
mine have
still.
been. So would mine have been.
So like
You
I
know,
love how do you do this with your clients, like with coaching them? How do you help them break free of these paradigms, right? Because you don't even realize you're so trapped in these constructs.
right.
How does that show up in your coaching
It
program?
can be so hard for people to see beyond what they've seen. You
Mm,
know, there becomes a point where it's just kind of like a wall past, you know, right after what you're used to. And it's hard for people to, you know, move that wall.
right,
um I think that just affirming people in learning to be authentic about their own desires, their own wants and needs, their own capacities, and, you know, affirming them in being creative about how they may navigate relationships with that in mind.
right,
You know, asking questions when I'm able to see that something doesn't seem to be, you know, in alignment in terms of um, what they say their values are and what they're doing, or doesn't seem to be flowing naturally.
mhm,
um you know, just asking questions around, you know, why that may be, and if they could imagine, you know, what may work more naturally for them. And then, you know, doing work around, you know, deconstructing some of those belief systems that make people think, yeah, I would want to do this, but
right.
you know, that I would judge myself, other people would judge me. You know, it's difficult for a lot of people to live outside of what they think is acceptable.
Right.
um you know, I um I don't struggle with that a lot. You know, thankfully, I myself, I don't struggle a lot with um living my life around what I think other people will think is okay.
Right.
Even people who are you know, very important to me.
Hmm.
You know, I really live my life for myself. You know, I don't even live my life for my kids.
I think
Um,
that that's a really hard concept when you're speaking
it's so hard.
specifically to women and then specifically adding the layer of being a black woman or
Yeah,
femme.
and
It's
all
like,
the respectability and all the
yeah,
indoctrination, um, you know, and just like the responsibility to community that
mhm,
we feel, you know, it really is hard, but it's work I'm committed to doing, because I think that, you know, personal authenticity empowers us as individuals,
I
and
agree.
that can only empower our communities.
Absolutely. And I think that that's very key. Like me, myself, I do shadow work, and shadow work is about that. It's about everything that you've suppressed to become more palatable
Right.
and releasing that, right? Because like you said, is that like partnerships take individuals, so we
Yeah.
can't come at it as like one conglomerate and of like what we're supposed to look at. It needs to
Right.
be these two people or more people who are
Right.
doing their own individual work, and then they're able to show up authentically in whatever space, right? Like in your
Yes.
parenting, in your, because it's all partnerships, in your relationships that are friendships, business, your lovers, You
your
have to show up.
parental relationships,
All of it.
like we just have to um learn to mind our business more, you know, not, and I think that like when we do like um really commit to being more authentic ourselves and let go of some of the fear around, you know, judgment or whatever consequences in terms of, you know, it lost relationships, even lost, you know, professional opportunities, even, you know, depending on the situations. Um, you know, when we're able to really inhabit our own truths, we're able to extend that grace to other people. You
Right.
know, if you're really minding your own business hard enough, you don't have time to mind other people's business.
Agreed.
You know, yeah,
Agreed. Because you're so focused on you becoming better. And that does extend to your
yes,
community. It
it
does, because
does.
when you are free, and like that's like my big thing is like I want everybody free because I
Me
live
too.
so freely and so authentically. I just believe everybody should feel that way. Like
You
you should
do.
be able
Yeah.
to show up in your life as you see fit. I think
Yes.
that releasing the idea of being selfish is selfish. Like
Right.
I have to be committed to me. I have to be committed to being the best version of myself if I'm going to
Right.
show up anywhere, and then other people will vibrate towards that as well.
Yes.
Right. And so I wanted to also ask is like, what advice, like in coaching, in life, would you offer to somebody? Like, if you could just sum it up in just one thing, what is the main key component of living this most authentic life and having healthy partnerships?
I think the key thing to remember, and I say it over and over again, is that all relationship work is self work. Focus on your self work, and focus on your self work whether you're in relationship or whether you're not in relationship, you
Right.
know. And so it takes you out of that mindset. If you really, you know, inhabit that as a value, it disconnects you from the a lot of like limiting beliefs around like scarcity and like wasting time, um
Right.
and fear that comes with all that. um you know, because how are you, how are you waiting if you're working on yourself, and
Right.
that's your life's work anyway? Like how are you wasting, how did you waste time in this relationship that, you know, didn't go the way you hoped it would go if you were working on yourself?
And
um
if you were just releasing the outcomes, like you said in the beginning, to release the attachment, not
right,
every single, there was another part in here I wanted to go through where, we often base the longevity, right? Like, well, we were together for
absolutely,
15 years, but if you didn't do the work on yourself,
right,
yes, you wasted time, not because it was 15 years with this person, because you didn't spend 15 years with yourself.
right, right,
Right? You didn't commit to the work on yourself. No relationship is a waste because we all would come out of situations, and you also don't have to hold on. Like some relationships are really only, I had a relationship when I was in college that was like a year, and I learned so much from that. And like
right,
obviously in my mind I was like, oh, this is going to be great. We'll get married because societal views tell you that that's how that should go. But
right,
dating for me during that time was great because I
right.
so much about myself. And it was after I had been married 11 years. I was with my first husband from like the age of 15 to 26. What? And like, I did not know, like, as I got older, right? Because like now I'm almost 30, I'm like, we are not the same people.
Not at all.
And I don't really like you very much. And I like him as a person, but like there was
Mhm.
no partnership. We just were not growing in any sort of a healthy way because we just
Mhm.
had different views on life. And when you're so young, like if you're like the same food and colors, you just think that you could make a lifetime.
Right.
But like I
I
was,
totally relate. 15 to 33 for
yeah,
me.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And it's wild. And then when I was single and dating and really just getting to know me, and like you said, releasing that attachment, committing to the work of self, I was juggling two, three people at the same time.
Right.
And it was
And it's
great.
all, and it's fine.
It was
The
great.
marks for me, the marks of success in a relationship are health and growth.
Yes.
And longevity, is great if the relationship is and the people involved are healthy and growing.
And I learned
Um,
more during that dating time about myself, just worrying about myself, than
right.
in my entire first marriage.
Yeah.
So like longevity has absolutely nothing,
And I
nothing
think,
to do.
and that goes back to like when you approach relationships, um, you know, keeping in mind, what you're investing as well as the return on that investment, keeping in mind, a priority for health um, in the relationship, a priority for personal growth. You can't lose. Like you won't walk away feeling like you've wasted your time. You
No,
won't walk away feeling depleted. But that comes from being mindful of what you're giving, in the context of what you're getting, being mindful to prioritize the health of the relationship, being mindful that you're growing as an individual,
mm-hmm.
and then every relationship is a success, no
Oh,
matter
I
how
love
long it
that.
lasts.
I really, really love that because, yeah, they all can be successes because you've grown and you've taken
Right,
from that and you've become like, I'm good with ending relationships, friendships, even. Like, I'm like, oh,
right.
okay.
Yeah,
Like,
because not everything, nothing is forever.
nothing, not a
Honestly,
thing.
and
No,
that's something that we don't want to, you know accept. But nothing is forever, not even you.
no,
um so, this idea that, you know every romantic relationship we have, you know, has to be for the rest of our lives or it's a failure, is,
unhealthy.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's unhealthy and absolutely ridiculous. And it's insane. Like,
Yeah,
nothing.
because 9 times out of 10, it's not, just statistically speaking, it's not gonna last
No.
until the end,
And that's okay. Like,
and
that's
it's
okay. We have to
perfectly
get through it.
fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we do. So let me ask you, what are the best resources that have guided you along the way and this learning path of yours?
I do a lot of reading. I do. We could have probably um, a whole session on just, you know books that I've read that I think are um, beneficial for the self work that supports relationships and partnership. Um, and I've had a lot of therapy. Like I've been
Therapy is so key. Oh,
It's
I love
so
my
key.
therapist.
Like I struggle to understand like how people navigate life without it. I've been in and out of therapy since my 20s, like
Hmm.
so 20 years.
Yeah.
Um, and that it's been such a tool for me, um, in terms of like really like getting clear, um, on myself, getting clear, um, about, past trauma, healing, like a
Yeah.
lot of, push toward, doing shadow work. That's just been key for me. And also, listening, um, being willing to sit at the feet of older Black women,
That's
who
so
may not,
important.
yeah, they may not have like read the books, but they have the life experience and the good sense.
Hmm.
And I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about dating, um, from older Black women. And also, my spiritual practice. I pray a lot. Um, And my ancestors support and guide me. So it's been a lifetime of education and releasing.
I like that. Yeah, I think that we really discount elders in our communities sometimes, like because they know so much, like because they could teach from a point of what we idealize, like grandmas and grandpas having 80-year-old like relationship. They were together 60 years, but have you
Yes.
talked to your
But
grandmother?
right, when you talk to them, like I still frequently, my grandmother has been, um, she's been deceased for over 10 years.
Hmm.
Um, and I still you know, at least weekly think back to something that she told me,
Right,
um in terms of like relationships. She basically had one. She was with my grandfather forever.
right.
But it wasn't it wasn't all it wasn't all roses and rainbows
It never is.
by far.
It
um
never is. It
and
never
when
is.
I took the time to like really sit down and ask her questions, she was honest with me, and I'm so thankful for that. And that's one of the things that I love about our community, Girls Growing, is that we have you know non-men of different ages.
Right.
We have so we're able to, those of us in our 40s are able to pour into like our siblings that are in their 20s.
I
And
do
we're
love
able to
that.
be poured into by our siblings that are in their 60s, that
Hmm.
are also in that community. So, um, that's is important. That
I do
community is
think
important.
mixed demographics are important because even the 20 somethings,
We learn
have,
from them
I
also.
learned from them. I'm like,
We
for
learn
real?
from
It's
them.
like that out there now? Oh my God.
Hmm.
That is absolutely wild. Who would have thought, So I
And
think
are
that like that's
inspired by
important as
them.
well.
I can see
Yes.
our evolution. I can
Yes.
see our evolution in them. And
Yes.
it gives me so much hope for where we're going.
Yeah, because they don't put up with half as much stuff as I would have
Hell
in my
no.
20s. They're like,
Hell no.
And I'm like, yes, tell them.
Yes, I'm like, look at, like, at 26, you're where I was at 40.
Right.
Like, yes, we're getting it together.
We are. And I think that's very specific. Again, back with like Black people in relationships is like we haven't had the freedom of navigating our relationships. I mean, we
Yes,
just were able to get married
we
two
haven't had
generations ago.
and not, yeah, because we haven't had the freedom to disconnect from struggle,
Right.
long enough to even focus on ourselves in any aspect.
Correct.
So like we're just, within really, Generation X, and younger,
Hmm.
um, finding the time to, like really ask ourselves
What do we want?
how we're
Right.
doing, really have resources to invest in therapy,
Right.
have resources to invest, you know, in ourselves, have time and mental space to sit down and read a book.
Right.
So it's, we're babies
We are.
in this process.
As we're about to start closing up, because you have a coaching session coming up today, Missy.
I do.
So I wanted to say, well, I did want to ask if you could tell your 18-year-old self something, what would that thing be?
I think that, what when we've talked about longevity in relationships, and kind of both talked about it's not the end all and be all.
Right.
What I do say about longevity in relationships and the benefit of it is that it gives perspective, it gives context, it minimizes, you know today, this week. um it clarifies it as a moment. And so that's what longevity does in relationships. Longevity in life does the same thing. When you're young, um, or younger, you have less perspective. You're looking back is not as far. You don't have as many experiences um, to use to compare. So everything that you experience is amplified. It seems so much bigger. Um, at 44, I have a much higher capacity for understanding that everything is a moment, and every moment passes.
Oh
You
my.
know, Nothing is as big as you know I thought it was when I was 18. When you're
Nothing.
18 and everything is just like
Everything is everything.
everything, because you don't have enough to compare it to.
Right.
Living a little life, you see that it's all right.
Yeah.
It's all right. It's gonna be all right. It already is all right. And I think back to like how much I used to worry and stress about everything and think I wasn't gonna be okay. Um, and look at I'm
Yeah.
okay.
And you
Everything was
make it.
fine. Yeah.
Yeah, that is a very true perspective. When you're younger, everything it's the brain development, right? We use that like when you're younger, it's like everything, always,
You
never.
know,
Like those are
right,
those big words, right? But you never let me go anywhere, or I'm always feeling this way, and it
right.
feels like that when you're so young. And then yeah,
Hmm.
you get older, and it's like yeah, no, everything's a moment. And damn it, I
Yeah.
get through those moments.
Yes, you get through all of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
every single one. So, in closing, just a couple more little questions was what does shift mean to you and what would you like to see in the world?
Shift for me is a change in perspective. I study Marianne Williamson quite a bit. She talks a lot about A Course in Miracles, which I also study, and
Mhm.
she defines a miracle as a shift in perception. And so I think of shift.
I like that.
Yeah, I think of that when I think of shift. It's a miracle,
It really
and
is.
we elevate miracles to be just these, you know, out of this world, once in a lifetime thing to happen. But no, miracles happen every day. And
All day.
making a miracle happen is just as easy as changing your mind about
Absolutely.
something. And
Paradigm shifts are where it's at. Like if you can
yeah,
shift your mind, you can live a completely different life.
and you can, and that's the thing, you always can. That's a lot of times when I feel like really stuck in my attachments and really stuck in my way of seeing a situation, and I know that like I'm causing myself suffering. um I just pray for a miracle. I just pray for God to help me see the situation differently, and it always comes. So I wish a lot for this world, and that could be, we could talk about that forever. But I would say I wish more people would be aware of their own power to make change,
Yeah.
simply by being willing to change their perspective and change the way they see things.
That's beautiful. I completely, and this is why we vibe because, like, that's my whole jam. I'm like, if you just shift your paradigm a
Yeah,
little,
that's
like,
all you have to do.
you are really in your own way, and
Yeah,
like,
just
you
be
get out of your
willing
own
to
way.
be, yeah, and I so resist at this point in my life, saying what I'll never do, saying what
Right.
will always happen. Like, I don't subscribe to extremes or really permanence in anything. Like,
No.
I really try to remain flexible. That's not easy for me because I'm a Capricorn. um so it is intentional work, but I am committed to being willing to change my mind about anything.
I love
um
that.
and it is, that serves me well.
I think it would serve a lot of people well. Well, I mean, we can go on and on because one, I just absolutely adore you, but it is almost time for
I
your
adore you
coaching.
right back. Yeah.
So I want you to have a moment to breathe before you have to jump in and like do your thing with them. But could you let the listeners know where they could find you or book you for coaching or just like be in Girls Growing? What does that look like? How do they find you?
Yeah, definitely. You can find me. You can book sessions on my website, pamiverson.com. I am Pam Iverson on Facebook. And Girls Growing is a private group, but I think it's searchable. And if not, you can message me.
Okay.
Message me, Pam Iverson, if you're interested in joining.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Pam, for your time. And I want to have you again just because, again, you just have such
Because we just
wonderful
like to
perspective.
talk. That's
That
why.
too. That too.
Keep
Shh,
it
don't tell all
real.
my business. Like this, having a podcast makes so much sense for me. I don't know why this hasn't happened before. I'm like, I love to talk to people. But you have an awesome day. Thank you for your perspective. Thank you for your wisdom, your knowledge, and just thank you for Girls Growing has literally changed my own life and helped me shift my own perspectives. And
Mine too.
as a biracial woman in America, being so embraced by Black women and femmes and not feeling I had to disconnect from any part of me for the first time in my life has been life changing. So thank you for curating that space and creating it and holding it so sacred for us all. Thank you.
Thank you for being in community with me.
I love y'all. And you especially. All right. I will talk with you later.
Okay.
All right.
Bye bye.
Bye.